I think the person who is on Nokia doesn't know that they are on
Yeah,
Nokia.
I'm still trying to put my name.
Put your name on the chat then, so that we can help you to change it. Just put it on the chat.
How?
What is your name, sir? Very quickly. What is your name? Nokia C30. Very quickly. Just your first name is fine.
Napoletala.
N-A.
N-A-P-O.
N-A-P-O. L-I.
N-A-P-O-L-E.
L-E.
Okay, that would do. I will change it to that. That's fine. I will change it to that. At least we've got something than a device. Thank you, Brother Ambi. You go ahead, sir.
All right. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this edition of the Daily Briefing. And I'm really excited because we have our leader in the house. He's visiting us today, and with another special guest. But I would leave the honors to Dr. Linus to introduce what we're going to do this evening, and then and the order of the proceedings of this evening. Dr. Linus, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am here.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Brother Mb. Thank you very much, Sister Pauline. A very warm welcome to all our guests, particularly His Royal Highness King Semako. We also have a very special guest, Reverend Frank Ikeja of MVC Funds. Many of you may know him and many of you may not. I will give him the opportunity to introduce himself when he is speaking, but he's probably one of the most prominent bankers that the continent can rely on to ensure adequate capitalization of institutions and the rest. But I'll leave that to Reverend Frank when he's doing his introduction. Of course, our most eminent His Royal Highness Chief Semako is with us today. It's a great pleasure. You have all seen or at least have heard of what is going on in Bakolokwe Kingdom in terms of the adoption of the Lumi. Our drive continues to be to deliver access to every household, every individual, all the kingdoms across the continent, and to ensure that there is an accessible manner in which everyone can access our common instrument of exchanging value, the Lumi, so that we begin the process of driving real-time exchange of value amongst our communities within continental Africa and its diaspora. So without much further ado, I would like to introduce King Semako. Welcome.
A most wonderful, wonderful, glorious evening to you. Greetings to you one and all. And as this is my first time addressing you this year, allow me to still say Happy New Year, although we are well into the middle of February. Let me see if I can get some visuals here. I'm going to keep my commentaries, just a moment. My commentary short and to the point, as I think, I apologize, Dr. Linus.
That's okay. We're usually very patient here because every time we come, we are learning. Technical hitches, they all happen all the time. And it's absolutely fine.
No, very good. As indicated, first of all, greetings one and all, and Happy New Year to you. I will keep my commentary short and brief to the point. I know that you wanted to have an update with regards to what is happening within the Bakolokwe Nation and of course across the continent. And I think what is most important before I even make a commentary on Bakolokwe Nation is to make a much more important commentary into an important legal clarification that we have been making with all of our AU member states across the entire continent. As we've been unfolding Lumi for all of this time and coming into many political hurdles. And of course, what we recognized is that many of the administrations across the continent itself were not sure of the correct protocols and frameworks by which to integrate ECO6. And because of that lack of understanding of their own protocol, there has been effectively barriers over the last 2 years, which we've now successfully been able to clarify and are now in a dynamic position for transformation. Dr. Linus, am I able to share my screen here for a moment? Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yes, you are. You can just go ahead and share.
Thank you. Now, this very instrument here, called the Protocol on Relations between the African Union and the regional economic communities, speaks to the legal instrument by which ECO6 as a regional economic community, of course, engages the continent and the member states of the AU. And previously, the confusion that everybody thought or was operating under was purely under the auspices that the African Union is itself the superordinate body. But we must keep in mind that the 1991 Abuja Treaty, which established the regional economic communities, is the overriding instrument for continental integration under which the AU itself adheres to. And this very protocol, which unfortunately many of our leaders were not, I don't want to say informed about, because obviously they were informed about it, but they've lost oversight of it. This very protocol constitutes one of the key legal instruments under which the regional economic communities interact with the African Union. And in the past, the African Union had made the error of only identifying 8 regional economic communities, but according to the protocol, it states very clearly, and I want to take this moment to go through this so that you have this legal framework in your mind. The protocol states very clearly that a regional economic community means a regional grouping of African states organized into a legal entity by treaty with economic and social integration as main objective. And so, of course, it doesn't delineate only the 8 regional economic communities, but applies to all regional groupings. And of course, to formalize our engagement, during our Maroon conference in October of this year, we of course had ratified and submitted our instruments of ratification to the African Union so that it was clear that we were functionally operating under the protocol of relations between the regional economic communities and the African Union. Now, the reason why I bring that to your attention is because it is our hope and our expectation going forward now that because there is greater clarity as to the legal protocols under which the LUMI is being integrated across the continent, there should be less hurdles both by central banks and by political administrative bodies as people present their LUMI as the instrument of the Diaspora 6th region for trading across the continent. So I just wanted to take a moment to give that point of legal clarification. And then of course, coming to the most recent dynamic that I know Dr. Linus had debriefed you on yesterday pertaining to Bakalokwe Kingdom. Of course, Bakalokwe speaks to one of our very important strategies. And that strategy for the diaspora is bringing the African family, as well as our economic mandate for the African family, to the most pragmatic fundamental levels. As you know, when our ancestors were taken from the continent, they were not taken from states such as the Republic of South Africa or the Republic of Nigeria or the Republic of Ghana. the fact of the matter is all of those states are what we call part of the colonial franchise that were created during the 1884 Berlin Conference. And so all of our ancestors came from kingdoms. So as we now engage continental free trade, we understand kingdoms to historically be an important part of the continental engagement, insofar as the limitation on free trade was a consequence of the 1884 Berlin Conference, and our kingdoms always had free trade prior to that. So now as the kingdoms engage in the free trade mechanism and in cooperation with the sixth region, of course, Bakalokwa Nation is one of those kingdoms that has taken a very important leadership role in integrating its ability to engage both its cultural identity as a traditional African kingdom space on the one hand, as well as have a view towards Africa's future economic needs in this 21st century on the other hand. And of course, the diaspora is so delighted to partner with the kingdom, both in the cultural traditional context, as well as all of its economic developmental agendas. And of course, the municipalities within Bakalokwa Kingdom, the businesses within Bakalokwa Kingdom, and the general civil society throughout have all now come forth to adopt Lumi, which has been declared as the official currency within the kingdom and is now being integrated throughout the businesses. As a statement of caveat on that, because I don't want to create a panic so that everybody suddenly runs over to Bakalokwa and immediately tries to engage in the economy. Of course, keep in mind that we are going through a process of integration of the Lumi, as well as a process of political integration and partnership of ECO6. And so we always encourage people to not jump on the first piece of news that you hear and try to implement actions in that regard, because these things are procedural. And as we engage this process, it's a very exciting process that will be duplicated throughout the entire continent. So we set Bakalokwa as a prototype, and a very exciting one at that, for what will be unfolding across the continent within our kingdoms and ultimately within all of the nation states across the continent as we engage in that partnership. And so I would keep my statements short and brief as I indicated, but maybe Dr. Linus, there's one or two questions that you wanted me to address as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Chief. Of course, as Chief says, it is a process of integration. These things can take time. There is no need for any panic. There is a lot of work going on in the background, and that gives you the magnitude of the work that is going on in the background. We will continue to have this presented here from time to time. Now, I would, Chief, if you're going to stay on for a few more minutes, I would give the opportunity for Reverend Frank Ikejija to step in and say something, and then we have a joint questions Q&A, questions and answers. Would that be okay?
That's
to do
fine.
that?
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay, Reverend, if you can hear me and you are with us, I can see you are there. Please unmute yourself and you can do us the great favor of introducing yourself. I would just simply say that you're probably one of the most formidable global bankers that African soil has given birth to. And we hope that with your expertise, your balance sheet, we can really work together to drive the transformation process across the continent as it relates to access and the ability to actually drive the industrialization that needs to happen across all the countries within continental Africa. Thank you very much. Welcome, Reverend Frank Ikejija. Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, good day to each and everyone. I glad to join you this afternoon here, my time. in Texas. I'm in Texas. And I wanted to be a joint meeting with Chief Semako, since I have spoken to him and we've gotten this process going. We don't talk all the time, but I wanted to, after the last conversation we had perhaps about a week or two ago, to join you guys and let you understand that we do have everything that we need to move the continent further down from where we have been. Chief Semako understands this things pretty well. Dr. Itube understands this things pretty well. Those within the circles of NVC and those leaders that I speak to all the time within our platforms understand the need to get the continent moving. The scramble for the resources of the continent has now stopped. The system that is built on dispossessing the Africans and the indigenous African nations and kingdoms from having the benefit of the resources that God has entrusted to us has intensified, because now it is glaring because of the systems that are now in place for us to be able to coordinate and see what has been happening over the last perhaps 500 years or more, that the children of the continent are now in position to claim what belongs to them and take possession of their resources in a way that their people can benefit from what God has blessed us with, has become very apparent and glaring. And we see, and now we understand that most of the European nations and in the West, and indeed the world, depend on the resources of the continent of Africa. I'm sure most of you have seen that confession of what I call economic hitman.
Economic hitman.
Yes, that he confessed. I'm sure he was not aware that somebody was recording it, but it became. I think that video has gone viral, and I had my discussion with Chief Semako the other day. I said we should constitute a court and prosecute that man and his inks and his fellow travelers and convict them for their crime, because the man spoke the truth, which is not acceptable. We should revolt against that kind of open confession and let that become a starting point and do justice to it, natural justice, to say that a continent or a sub-Saharan Africa should not be allowed to progress and should not be allowed to have access to her resources, and the rest of the world should just stand back and allow that to be. It's a crime against humanity. Anyway, for the discussion of today, I want to make it clear that the resources of NVC Fund Holdings, which has been the subject of much talks and at the highest places, including the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, and in the attempt to try to find something that they can use against it, has failed woefully, because we fought it out through the federal court systems here in the United States. So at this point, there is nothing else that they can do but to acquiesce and let us use what God has blessed us with, and stand back while we do what we need to do for the benefit of our people. So I'm in a struggle. I join hands with all those who are wanting what is best and what is good for the continent of Africa. I'm glad to partner with this group of great men who are in the forefront, because I truly believe that the system they've created had made it very difficult for even the African so-called leaders, the leaders of the African countries, their presidents and their prime ministers, because in most cases they are compromised. The system that is built that they have to run has compromised them, and they are struggling to keep pace and to hold on to their powers. And so don't think it is easy for those who are in those positions. In most cases, before they get there, they have been compromised. The Western nations are very careful about who they allow, because of the strangulation that they've held against the African continent for so long, that they make it difficult for the people to select their true leaders. So they throw up people that they can control. And if perchance a man comes up that is not towing the line according to and easily manipulated and controlled, they'll find a way to remove him from power. And so they are in most cases struggling to keep up and hold on to their powers. The difference between the ECO6 region, the Africans in diaspora, and what Chief Semako is leading and what we are supporting here is the fact that we understand the West and we understand what is going on in the continent. And because we are not picked by their system, we can do certain things, we can speak in a certain way, and we can take certain actions that circumvents the well-orchestrated system of oppression that they put in place for so long. I hope you guys hear me clearly in this regard. We are not elected by their system. We are taking our position free from their system. We still have to find a way to integrate, and we are integrating with their system by natural law, not by the system that they've created. They will have to stand down. Freedom is not given, freedom is taken. And we have to take our own freedom. We have to take our own power. The natural power that God has given to us is what we're going to assert, because we are conscious of where we are and who we are. And we are speaking for the benefit of our people. And we cannot be denied that under natural law of justice. And so we'll continue to push and begin to sensitize those that need to know, because a lot of the traditional institutions, a lot of the kings and the leaders of the people, not the statutory system that they've created, not the corporations that they've created and called nations. Nigeria is a corporation, is the names that they give to these nations according they are not our names. Those independent names that they gave to these nations, these artificial boundaries that they created, the desire to take the power from the traditional institutions and give it to their political system, and take the traditional roles of leadership. I'm sure many of you are aware that when they established this system, they sort of place the traditional institutions under the political system that they created, so that they continue to control the political system, thereby dispossessing the traditional leaders of their natural powers. I'm sure you're following what I'm saying. And so the idea that a state governor or a president of a country will be able to dictate and be able to give the staff of office to a leader of his people, as opposed to the other way around, is a usurpation of authority. Maybe these discussions will come up at a different time, but for today, we'll talk about the economic empowerment of our people by creating and supporting the medium of exchange that needs to be happening among our people. I'm sure it is glaring now that many of the nation's fiat currencies, like the Naira or whatever the names of the various currencies are of the various African countries throughout the continent of Africa, so weak now that you need several hundreds of one of your currencies to equal $1, or one French francs, or one British pound, or €1. The idea that Africa is the richest continent with all of the resources, and yet there's no African country or no African bank in the top of the 7 continents. Of the 7 continents, Africa is the richest, and nobody's debating that. And the idea that among all of the 7 continents, which really 6, because nobody lives in Antarctica, so really it's not as, should not be considered, that there's no African bank in the top 6 banks in the world. There's no African bank in the top 10 banks in the world. There's no African bank in the top 25 banks in the world. There's no African bank in the top 50 banks in the world. That is a crime already. You are the richest continent, yet you don't have, and there are only 7 continents, and there's none of your banks in the top 7 banks in the world. And nothing happens in the world of global finance without it going through the top 25 banks in the world. And there's no African bank in the top 25 banks in the world. No African corporation, no African bank can lend 100 million to one company, regardless of how big they are in the continent, because they are so debased. No, you cannot move 50 million from the European banks into Africa without getting permission from so many institutions that are monitoring the system of global finance. There's a lot of oppression in the system. There's a lot of inbuilt disequilibrium to disenfranchise the continent. These are the battles that we have to fight to remedy. And we cannot do it haphazardly. We have to be consolidated. We have to come collectively. We have to address these things frontierly. And there's no African government that can address this frontierly. So what we are doing here in the ECO 6 region and in the creation of the African Diaspora Central Bank and the African Financial Regulatory Authority and the African Central Banking systems that we need to really put in place, to put the systems in place to be able to address our issues. These are the things that are very crucial that needs to be addressed. I am glad to be in the midst of it, to be working with Chief Semako, who is a visionary, who understands this thing pretty well. Dr. Linus Itube, who is on the technical side with his partner, Umbi, I hope I pronounce your name correctly, and so many others that are working with them to address these issues. I'm glad to be among you. I think we need to address these things. We need to work tirelessly to connect the dots and remedy the situation. I'm glad that the NVC Fund Bank, which is under the license of the African Diaspora Central Bank and with the support of the African Financial Regulatory Authority and the treaties that created the African Union, we have to know our rights. We have to take it. We don't need to depend on others to approve us. We have to approve ourselves. We have the authority to approve ourselves. We don't need any other authority. We are the authority. And it's how we enforce our rights and our authority that makes all the difference. And I'm sure, and I'm sure many of you are passionate about this things, and so it should be, because we cannot just carry on business as usual in light of what we know, in light of what is happening around the world. I don't know if any of the nations of the world will allow foreign powers to come and set up military bases in their different countries. Why is it necessary for foreign powers to come to the continent of Africa and set up military camps? Who gave them that authority? Because we don't have covers, we don't have coverings. And so they take us for granted and just come and do whatever they want. They're manipulating the continent and they're manipulating the people, and they're just doing whatever they want within the continent. And we should do everything we can to try to remedy those situations. So we have fights on our hands. They're not going to go away without exposure. We have to expose these things and let them know that we are not taking it anymore. And so I hope I haven't rambled and gone too far from the topic of discussion, but I will stop for now and let you guys continue. And if I can answer any question, then I will do that. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much, Reverend. We also still have, of course, King Semako on the line. And I know they are both extremely busy and may have to step out at any moment. But I think we have an opportunity. This doesn't happen all the time. We expect it to happen more often as we have other guests who are very much passionate about the movement, who believe in taking the opportunity and taking the action to drive our efforts forward, who believe that we have what it takes to do it. And there are many of you on this call tonight. So please, let's take the opportunity to ask questions to both Reverend Frankie Kejija and King Semako. If anybody has any questions, I believe we should open up the floor for those questions. I know there are other people on the line. I acknowledge everybody and I welcome everybody. And just in case you're wondering, there are so many people who are working so hard to keep this movement alive, to keep it going, and to ensure that we are reaching every household and soon onboarding every business so that we can have the opportunity within this community to drive the kind of exchange of value that we believe will bring the kind of transformational impact that is necessary in our time and also for the future generations. I saw Janet Lumley on the line. She does excellent work in promoting Lumi in the media. I welcome you. I noticed you were here. If you're still here, perhaps we might call you in later on to make one or two remarks. Thank you very much. But let's open the floor for the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Linus. And really, listening to the leaders who just spoke, some of these things literally, brings tears to my eyes, just thinking about the potential we have, what we have as value as African people on the continent and in the diaspora, but yet not featuring in the main arena when financial decisions are being made. Financial decisions that affect the last person on this continent. Every single person on this continent and in the diaspora is affected, but we don't have a seat around the table. Absolutely sad. What we are going to do, as Dr. Linus already mentioned, there is, there are a few questions. The leaders don't have enough time. We're just going to open the floor for 2 or 3 questions, not more, because they need to run, right? And anyone who has a question, please raise your hand and just let us know where you are connected from and introduce yourself, let us know where you are connected from, and then we can take your question. And if it's a specific question to one of the leaders, just mention the leader who should be responding to that question. The first person who raised his hand was Peter Mutuku. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I thank everyone. I thank the great leaders who have spoken and given us a lot of enlightenment. And I really put a lot of thanks to this movement. My question, to be precise, it's just more of a clarification I'm seeking. I understand that one of the reasons and how Africa is being exploited is through the different authorities, the different national leaderships, the presidents and the cabinets and the parliaments. So in that context, we hope and we expect that to reverse this, we expect the same authorities to be engaged. Of course, we have seen there are already legal frameworks and tools that have been put into place to enable this. But my question directly is that, is there any deliberate action or any plans that have been put into place to have these people engaged, despite the development of the movement and the network, because these will be the key icons to make sure that we have a big milestone towards this. Thank you very much. This is Peter Mutuku from Uganda.
I don't know, maybe His Royal Highness Chief Semako, maybe you can take that one.
Absolutely, and thank you kindly for the question. Again, one of the things that we've been focusing on explicitly as of late has been on the legal dynamics, because let us not be confused. Corruption is what it is, and the corruption is a reality. One of the things that ECO6 has done to contend that corruption is we've now activated fully the dynamics of our regional court, so that we do have the ECO6 and Global Commonwealth of New Africa Interregional Court of Justice. And the reason for taking that step is because we must get beyond the realm of lip service. We can no longer accept the idea that when we engage the leadership, they say things that are pleasing to our ears, and we walk away happy after having discussions with many presidents across the continent. But at the end of the day, we see that the parliaments, the central banks, and other administrative organisms are not actually taking the steps that are necessary for the changes that must manifest. And so we will begin to hold each and every one to a full degree of accountability for ensuring that the commitments that are being made, the obligations that are being legislated, are actually being done and achieved, and are not simply being utilized as political slogans. And so in terms of that level of engagement with parliaments and with the political administrations, our focal point has been on these legal frameworks now, so that there can be no more deception of the people. And of course, we're very much aware of the international, let me say global influence and pressure that comes down towards our continent. And it's for that very reason that we will hold all members of the international community to the exact same legal standards, because at the end of the day, when these events happen within the United States, within Canada, within Britain, or anywhere else within the European Union, they hold their leadership to some legal account. And so we shouldn't expect that when they are at their home territories, they have these legal standards, but then they get rid of all legal standards and engage in their hypocrisy and let us just use that for lack of a better word, that colonial mindset when they encounter the continent. So we will hold them to legal account, and we've been doing so. So the court, the ECO6 and Global Commonwealth of New Africa Interregional Court of Justice, is one of the very dynamic weapons and tools that we have at our availability now for engaging the international community as well as our leadership on the continent.
I think as Reverend Frank already mentioned, we already have a few candidates who should be hauled in front of that court. The second question is from Gideon Mukwawaya. Gideon Mukwawaya, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. My name is Gideon Mukwawaya from Zimbabwe. I've got two personal questions. I think I wanted to ask these questions yesterday, but I have to ask them now. The first question is that I tried to buy email. That is
Gideon, we want questions that are directed to the leaders and not the operational aspects of what we are doing at the moment and the access that we are providing to the members at the moment. If your question is not related to the leaders and the activities that have been spoken about this evening, then please hold on. We will take those questions after the leaders have left. because they don't have enough time. So if you don't have a question that is directed to them, then let me move to the next person. Just hold that question. It's an operational question which we don't want to deal with this evening, at least at this time. Is that okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
okay.
very much.
Fine. Thank you.
The next person is Abubakar Sadat. You have the floor. Abubakar Sadat, you have the floor. Your mic is off. Okay. If Abubakar is not coming on, Dr. Linus, I think that's it. We don't have any hands up again, like no direct questions to the leaders. I cannot just, okay, I see one more hand up. Brother Patrick, you have your hand up. You can open your mic.
Thank you, sir. My question goes to Reverend. I heard you mention that he is a representative of
Please just indicate where you are, because it's good for the leaders also to hear and understand where you are communicating from. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, sir, once again. My name is Patrick Matumbike. I am in South Africa, but originally from Zimbabwe. I am in Joburg right now. My question is to Honorable Reverend. I heard you mention that he is more or less a representative of a financial institution, and which has some kind of relations with the African Central Bank and with the African Central Bank and with the project of the African Diaspora Central Bank. If you may say, kindly elaborate on that one, as in the relationship between your financial institution and the African Central Bank, and in this case, the vision of the African kingdoms, Lumi. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, the relationship between NVC Fund Holdings and that of the African Diaspora Central Bank, which is by treaty, which is by agreement with the African Financial Regulatory Authority, and which is a construct that was approved by the African Union, ties all of what we are doing together, because in the world of finance, institutions, and money creation, these are agreements by member states that agree on using a certain protocol for settlement of transactions. Money is an instrument that is created to serve the need of a people across the world of commerce for buying and selling. And what the African nations are grappling with is, in terms of the devaluation of their currency and their energy and their resources, is a construct of those who are bent on creating and manipulating for their own benefit the energy and resources of the continent of Africa. if the people, if the 1.8 billion Africans agree through their institutions, through their construct, through their legislation, to adopt a system of finance and settlement of debt, then that agreement has to be among the people themselves. It does not have to be approved from an external source. If we agree to use the Lumi as a currency among ourselves, we don't need the approval of others to be able to assert that agreement is among ourselves. We have to be the ones that say this is our currency, this is what is going to represent our energy of settlement. We have the right, the natural right to be able to do that. The nations and the currencies that are operating now within the continent of Africa controlled through the central banking systems, which are not necessarily controlled by the nations on the ground, with the people on the ground. They just acquiesce to it. And so the control of those nations' currency really is not within the borders of those countries, yes, as many of us might believe or think, because the central bank is an umbrella that is hoisted on the banks within those countries. But the dictates of the central banks are not necessarily coming from the people. I hope some of us understand what I just said. Not everybody understands that. Like what is going on in Nigeria right now, where decisions are being made and currencies being changed, and just by the central bank. Central bank rules and regulations are not eternally generated. They have some freedom to do that, but at the end of the day, when decisions are made against the people through their central banking, you have to really go deep and say, what is actually happening here? So the central banking system is not controlled by the nations where those central banks are operating from. So that is something that we need to understand. The central banking system is controlled from external sources. The Federal Reserve Banks and the World Banks and the International Monetary Funds and Bank of International Settlement, all of those institutions, they are not African based, they are not African controlled. You have very little representation at where the decisions have been made. So the only thing that we control at this point is the African Diaspora Central Bank and the charter that created the African Financial Regulatory Authorities within preview. There was a charter to create the African Central Bank, but that, I don't know how effective that organization is at this point. So we have to really work to activate that so we can control the creation of money and means of settlement within the African continent itself. Then when we are properly organized, then we can interface with the Bank of International Settlement to settle the debts that are created or the financial transactions that are created within the African continent. Like I said earlier on, there are only 7 continents. And of all of the banks, in the top 25 banks where most decisions that control the flow of credit, bank instrument, letters of credit, there are no African banks in there. And when it comes to correspondent banking, most of those banks have to have European-based correspondent to approve or disapprove of their request. And so that's the dark room that Africans are not even allowed to enter. And so many things never happen. They starve the continent of the means to buy and sell and to develop their own space. And so we're suffering the effect of all of that by subterfuge, by trickery, by hiding the facts. And if we don't assert and we don't let these people know that we understand what is going on and we challenge it, then we remain where we are. There will always be confusion. Oh, Africans are not developed because it's their fault, according to that economic hitman. They're not going to make that obvious to you. They're not going to tell you how to remedy that, because it's not in their best interest. We have to assert ourselves. We have to tell them we understand what is happening and find solution ourselves by our own decrees, by our own edicts, by our own assertion, by our own framework. Like we just glad to hear that we now have the African Court of Justice. We have to create our own Supreme Courts, our own court system, and get approval from among ourselves, and not waiting for other people to approve us for anything. We have to issue our own banking instruments. We have to deal among ourselves. We have to be strong among ourselves so we can deal at a more equitable footing with the institutions of Europe and Asia and Latin America, or whatever the continents are, at a continental level. And then we all meet at the Bank of International Settlement. That's the way it's going to work. Nobody gives you freedom. You have to take freedom. You have to create your own institution. You have to build your own house. And Africans have not built their own house. And so we are suffering the consequences of not asserting ourselves. And so that is what we are dealing with. And we have to find those remedies for ourselves by knowledge, by understanding of how things work. And when we do, then they will respect us. They will accept us on an equal footing. It's not going to be easy, but we have to do it. It's up to us to do it. So I'll stop for now. I hope
Wonderful.
I'm able to share some light to your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Reverend Frank. I know Chief Semako has to step out, but before you go, Chief, I would like you to make a quick comment in relation to the relationship specifically as it relates to the Lumi system of banking. Because one of the things that is very clear, of course, is that if you are in a system that is unfair, a system that doesn't allow you to have equitable access and enjoy the opportunity to do what others can do within that system, you can either go and seek for the rules of engagement to change, or you can create an alternative system that is fair. And part of what we are doing is to create a fair system that can work for all individuals, all kingdoms, across all nations. We can only do that by establishing a system of banking with Lumi. And as part of that, there is a process for issuing those Lumi banking licenses to participating institutions that we partner with. And in due course, any financial institution that wants to participate within our system would have to play by our rules using licenses that we issue in order for them to participate within our Lumi system. So, Chief, I would like you to make a quick comment on that, because I think would also assist in addressing the question that was asked by Brother Patrick, if it was Brother Patrick, as it relates to the relationship between MVC funds, the African Diaspora Central Bank, the African Finance Regulatory Authority. Can you comment, please, on the Lumi system of banking? Chief, you're muted.
There we go. Thank you very much. Just as a preliminary comment to that, let us be very clear about this. When the son and the daughter comes back home, and the diaspora is very much the son and the daughter, if you see a problem in your parents' house, it behooves you as a child to rectify that problem. And so nobody should suppose that the diaspora is coming back to partake in dysfunctionalism. Nobody should imagine that we are coming back to limit ourselves to structural poverty. The fact of the matter is the diaspora is coming back to our ancestral lands. We see the challenges in our ancestral lands, and we see the way the global community has wrapped a web around our ancestral lands, and we will do everything necessary to address that issue directly and non-apologetically. And it doesn't matter if it means engaging the heads of states as we have done, or civil society. We will engage everybody because the issues must be addressed across the entire continent. And so one of the things that we obviously recognize pertaining to the financial community are the limitations of integration. It remains very much the case that, of course, some 65 to 70% of all the people across the continent have no access to financial institutions whatsoever. That is not a new topic. That is known, that is experienced by the vast majority of people. And so, of course, we have created the 6th region system of central banking, in which, under the auspices of ADCB as a regional monetary authority, we do issue banking licenses within those communities that currently do not have banking licenses or have not had access to equitable banking in the past. One of the cases and points for that would be an example not only pertaining to NVC, as we've just heard from the Reverend, but also within Bakalokwe Kingdom itself. The stimulus that is being given out now in Bakalokwe Kingdom is being issued vis-a-vis Bakalokwe Kingdom Bank. And of course, the Bakalokwe Kingdom Bank has now become part and partial, or is rather, part and partial of the 6th region system of central banking. And of course, we have established monetary institutions within Brazil. We've established them within Colombia, within Jamaica. NBC is located in the United States. And so that creates a network of monetary institutions under the auspices of ADCB, so that we no longer need to be looking to any third authority or power for permission to engage in financial transactions amongst our people, irrespective of our geographical locations. And that becomes part and partial of the dynamic of regional integration. So that as a member of the African Economic Community, which is established and defined by its regional economic blocks, the diaspora constitutes a regional economic bloc, irrespective of the national borders that those members are in. And as a regional economic bloc, we interface with those 5 regional economic blocs across the continent. So the 6-region system of central banking allows us to jumpstart a new era of financial inclusion, a new age of financial prosperity, and a new degree of monetary sovereignty, utilizing our own currency, our own financial networks, and our own in-house systems of payments and transactions. I hope that speaks to and addresses the question that you wanted me to touch upon, Dr. Linus.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Chief. I note that Janet Lumley is in the house. She's very much involved with the media. Janet, do you have any question before Chief runs? Janet Lumley, I can see you, but you're muted. I was wondering if you have any question before Chief or our guest, Reverend Frank Ikejija, leave. But if not, then that's absolutely fine. Is there any other question for, I think Chief has to go, so I think if we can allow him to leave, then perhaps he can do that. Unless, Chief, you're open to one more question before you go.
You can table the 2 questions that are there. I see the hands up. If one of those are for me, I will quickly address them before I depart. That's fine.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
All right. I think we have Gershon and Nephew. Are you there? Do you have a question for the leaders who just spoke?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I really thank each and everybody here, mostly moderators, and I honor you people, each and everybody here. I have a problem with my Swift, with my Transact account, and it has.
Gershon.
Yes, sir.
Please, if you listened to what I said earlier to someone else, the questions that we are asking are not operational questions. They are direct questions to the leaders and the presentations that they have made this evening. We will deal with the operational matters afterwards. So if your question is not directly to the leaders, then I will go to the next person. I have we have Alicia Williams. Are you there?
Greetings, good evening. Thank you so much for taking that.
Please just introduce yourself and tell us where you are connected from. Just so that
my name is Alicia Williams, and I am from Tobago, which is in the Caribbean.
Okay.
And so I understood what the brother was talking about, having the bank in Jamaica and stuff like that. What do you all have in place for those of us who are in, like, other Caribbean islands, have access to the Lumi, because some of us are in the Swifin and that kind of thing? How are we able to actually use our Lumi and benefit from what you are doing?
Okay. Chief, do you want to take that?
Absolutely.
Great.
You know, I always
I kind of feel as if I'm sitting in the same room every time.
First of all, allow me to say greetings, Alicia Williams. I always, when I hear that question, how do I use my Lumi? As we build this network across the continent and throughout the diaspora, nobody ever asks, how do they use US dollar? They simply use it. They identify, they go into the stores and they identify where they can use it, and they use it. No one asks how to use euro, but our people are still wondering how to utilize Lumi. And I think what is important for us to recognize is that as we take control of our own economy and our own economic dynamics, we must understand that if you are in Tobago, for example, and you have a community around you that is now utilizing Lumi, then the way that you use it is to use it. There's no two ways about it. By introducing it to the local shops, most people want to speak about the value chain. As we build our economy, we have to get away from this import dependency, because obviously it has not created any local employment for the African family. We've become addicted to importing shampoo from China, importing soap from India. Are we not capable of manufacturing these things in our own economy? And if we are capable of manufacturing these things in our own economy, then we mustn't wonder how we restock our shelves when we utilize our Lumi. We must build our economy, and that means create frameworks by which we create employment for our own people. We have a lot of youths who are phenomenal in terms of their entrepreneurial aspirations, but there comes a time when you must actually put your ideas into action. And as we build our economy, that is an action. It's not a theory. It's not a meditation that you do while you're watching TV. It's something that you proactively engage in. And so we have to proactively put our currency to work. There's a lot of people who've been receiving Lumi, who's been utilizing Lumi. And of course, there's a lot of patch communities that are trading in it, but we must much more robustly build upon that. I know that people want to engage in this activity of conversion. And I've said many, many times before that we understand that we are actually in a competition with the global community. And in order for us to succeed in this competition, we need to start focusing on building our local economies. Because otherwise we will forever be in a situation where we are consuming goods that are manufactured somewhere else that do not create any employment opportunities for our people, so that we will maintain a situation in which we have perpetual underemployment, perpetual low wages. Meanwhile, an economy like China sits down and says, oh, look, in the last 30 years, we've gone from being a third world economy to a global superpower. And they did all of that by doing what? Utilizing the resources of Africa. So if China can transform its economy vis-a-vis Africa's resources, we as a global African people must recognize that we can transform ourselves vis-a-vis our own resources. And the key to doing that is to take that necessary step to trade amongst ourselves, within our local economies, and recognize that from one local economy to the next, we do have people who are ready, willing, and able to provide goods and services to support their neighboring communities. I hope I've addressed your question. Let us not ask anymore how to use Lumi. Let us use Lumi.
Can someone please continue so that I could have some, because I have folks here where we need to have a meeting so we could, what you are saying is what I've been saying. It's just that in our community, we probably need some guidance on how we could implement some of the things, because our currency basically doesn't allow us to be able to just jump the Lumi up in here. So we would like to have some guidance as to how we can I don't know, maybe incorporate it with what we have going on also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Chief. I think you've been with us long enough, longer than in fact we expected. So thank you. You have our official permission now to take leave, if you may. But I also recognize, and also Reverend Frank, if you want to stay on to answer a few more questions, that's absolutely fine. But if you also need to step aside, I know you've dedicated substantial time to join us this evening, and we're very grateful for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Using Lumi,
Thank you
very much for having us, Dr. Linus, Brother MB, and all of you. It's been a pleasure to come out and engage you this evening. I've been very tight-lipped about some of the wonderful things that are actually going on the ground, because again, I don't want to create a herd effect. I see the question that's come up, when we will be able to utilize our Lumi in South Africa. There's a lot of things happening in South Africa right now. And as I said, already begin to use Lumi. And if you don't have someone who you can transact with your Lumi, then hold on to your Lumi until you find someone that you can transact with. We are building phenomenal frameworks at the moment. We never, ever, ever came up with a vision for how to get rich quick. This isn't a new iPhone that is supposed to come and go at the end of the year. We are building a new era of African economic empowerment and prosperity that is supposed to last for many, many generations to come. So although you have your immediate needs today, never lose sight of the fact that what we are doing is foundational. And I would hazard to say, as important as your needs are today, far more important is the sacrifice that you make today for your children and the next generations to come, all of whom are very much dependent on the very steps that we are taking right now as a collective global family to recapture our economic sovereignty and autonomy so that we can be leaders in this 21st century and in generations and centuries yet to come. So let us always, always keep sight of our macro agenda. Let us never forget that we are coming out of 400 years and more of captivity. And the web that has been around us for these 400 years and more was intended to keep us in captivity forever. But by the grace of our Creator, we now call an end to that 400-year era, and we begin this new phase, not with hostility, but with intelligence. And we even extend our hand in partnership to the global community. But we recognize that this is our age. This is our time as a global African family to remember ourselves as a people, to reestablish ourselves with the dignity that our ancestors had, so that we can walk with our head held high on the international stage, and to know that the solutions that we will build, whether we are manufacturing cars, whether we're manufacturing phones, computers, it doesn't matter, that the solutions that we will build going forward will be the solutions that catapult us into a new economic renaissance of great prosperity. So think macro, live micro. Blessings to you all. Thank you once again for having me. And Dr. Linus, anytime that that you would like me to be present, I'm more than glad to be present. Blessings and thank you. Good night.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, I will echo what Chief Semako has said. And we are working behind the scene to make these things come easy. If our ancestors had done this, we would not be doing what we are doing, but we'll be building on top of it. So like he said, we are coming out of over 400 or 500 years of a system that is built to keep us in slavery in perpetuity. But we are moving with intelligence to get out of it, and every one of us here have a responsibility. So we are not building something for today, but we're building something for generations to come. And so let's everyone be patient as we lay this foundation brick by brick, and by God's grace, we have all of the resources to be able to accomplish this. And most of all, we have each other to help implement it for the benefit of not only ourselves, but for generations to come. So the job is in progress, and we're working as fast as we can to make it a whole lot easier for us to participate in the world of global commerce. But from our own perspective, we will be negotiating on equal footing, not as beggars, but as equity contributor to the global system, which we have been. We've given enough. It's time for us to receive some of the benefit of what our resources have benefited the world over the last 500 years. They cannot deny us that. They should not deny us that. And if they insist, then it's on them, not on us. But we are not going to play as if we are not aware of our position, of our strength, of our resources, and for the benefit of our people. So let's continue to put our heads together. Let's continue to work together until we build an easier system that will be of benefit to our people so we can thrive. God bless you all, and thank you as I leave.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see Sir Clifton Brown in the audience.
Thank you very much, Dr. Linus, for having invited me to this session. I am listening keenly. Unfortunately, I came in late and wasn't able to hear the two speakers, but I have picked up little bits here and there. I also want to say, for the benefit of Alicia Williams, who is in the Caribbean, I think she's in Tobago, that she can contact us in Jamaica, and we'll be able to assist her in how she can use her Lumi. So I'm going to leave my number in the chat box so she can get in touch with us here in Jamaica.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. And for those who are keenly following what is going on in Bakoloko Kingdom in South Africa, Jamaica set the pace and the example on how to mobilize the community for complete and total penetration and use of the Lumi. They are actually miles ahead. They already had their Lumi market where they were trading and exchanging goods and services. And I'm sure many of you would have heard VPM Hugh Johnson say from time to time, grow what you eat and eat what you grow. We should be able to, amongst our community, exchange value for goods and services, and our common instrument of exchanging value is the Lumi. It is our collective responsibility and collective duty to make sure that those 91% or more people who have been excluded for generations in some countries, that we can all work together to make it a thing of the past, that we can all, for the first time, use a common instrument of exchanging value across the community, wherever you are. And in direct response to the question that Alicia Williams asked, how can I use my Lumi in where I am? We now have Transact. And within Transact, it provides a complete local currency experience, where if you are in Jamaica, you simply select Jamaican dollars, and you can execute your transactions in Jamaican dollar values but the singular instrument of exchange remains the lumi. And you can do that at the flick of a button, at the click of a button, and switch to Nigerian Naira and do the same in real time, wherever you are in the world. So we have the tools, and it is now up to us as a community to use those tools in order to drive commerce and exchange of value within community members and businesses across the community, as we work together to change and transform lives economically and make it history exclusion, and encourage the use of a single instrument of exchanging value across the community all over, within all the countries within continental Africa and the African diaspora. So thank you very much. I just wanted to make that comment in response to Alicia Williams' question in addition, and to acknowledge Sir Clifton Brown for the great work that he has been leading in Jamaica. Thank you very much.
Yeah, what can we say? I don't think there's much to say this evening anymore. As a way of moving forward, I'm just delighted that we had most of the people who are always here, and some of the leaders. I can see our brother as well, who is a luminaire. Brother Theo Chambers is also in the house. Good evening, Brother Theo. We can see you're here. He is also part of the people who helped to drive the movement extensively in Jamaica.
Happy day, everyone.
Good day, Brother Theo. We can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry I'm late, but I'm just here in Jamaica enjoying the beautiful weather, listening to all the progress that is taking place.
Great. It's good to see you in the house this evening. I just thought we should acknowledge, because I saw your name on the screen. Thank you for joining this evening. In fact, for everyone else who is in the house, it's been a really, really great session. I don't think we should say anything more for this evening. Every other question we would defer to tomorrow. There are a lot of people who had operational questions, but today was a lot more strategic than operational. So I think we should end it on that note. Dr. Linus?
I could not agree more. And thank you for coming, and see you again tomorrow. The movement goes on.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Oh, what a day. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Megan here from Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Merci, Loba.
Merci beaucoup.